Stephen Paul Jobs, known as Steve Jobs, was an American business magnate, industrial designer, investor, and media proprietor. He was the chairman, the chief executive officer, CEO, and a co-founder of Apple Incorporated, the chairman and majority shareholder of Pixar, a member of the Walt Disney Company's board of directors following its acquisition of Pixar, and the founder, chairman, and CEO of Next. Jobs is widely recognized as a pioneer of the personal computer revolution of the 1970s and 1980s, along with Apple co-founder Steve Wozniak. Jobs was born in San Francisco, California, and put up for adoption. He was raised in the San Francisco Bay Area. He attended Reed College in 1972 before dropping out that same year, and traveled through India in 1974 seeking enlightenment and studying Zen Buddhism. Jobs and Wozniak co-founded Apple in 1976 to sell Wozniak's Apple I personal computer. Together the duo gained fame and wealth a year later with the Apple II, one of the first highly successful mass-produced microcomputers. Jobs saw the commercial potential of the Xerox Alto in 1979, which was mouse-driven and had a graphical user interface, GUI. This led to the development of the unsuccessful Apple Lisa in 1983, followed by the breakthrough Macintosh in 1984, the first mass-produced computer with a GUI. Jobs was forced out of Apple in 1985 after a long power struggle with the company's board and its then CEO John Sculley. That same year, Jobs took a few of Apple's members with him to found Next, a computer platform development company that specialized in computers for higher education and business markets. In addition, he helped to develop the visual effects industry when he funded the computer graphics division of George Lucas's Lucasfilm in 1986. The new company was Pixar, which produced the first 3D computer-animated feature film Toy Story, 1995, and went on to become a major animation studio, producing over 20 films since then. Jobs became CEO of Apple in 1997, following his company's acquisition of Next. He was largely responsible for helping revive Apple, which had been on the verge of bankruptcy. He worked closely with designer Johnny Ive to develop a line of products that had larger cultural ramifications, beginning in 1997 with the Think Different advertising campaign and leading to the iMac, iTunes, iTunes Store, Apple Store, iPod, iPhone, App Store, and the iPad. In 2001, the original Mac OS was replaced with the completely new Mac OS X, now known as Mac OS, based on Next's Next Step platform, giving the OS a modern Unix-based foundation for the first time. The location of the Los Altos home meant that Jobs would be able to attend nearby Homestead High School, which had strong ties to Silicon Valley. He began his first year there in late 1968 along with Bill Fernandez. Fernandez introduced Jobs to Steve Wozniak and would later be Apple's first employee. Neither Jobs nor Fernandez, whose father was a lawyer, came from engineering households, and thus decided to enroll in John McCollum's Electronics I. In 1971, after Wozniak began attending University of California, Berkeley, Jobs would visit him there a few times a week. This experience led him to study in nearby Stanford University's Student Union. Jobs also decided that rather than join the Electronics Club, he would put on light shows with a friend for Homestead's avant-garde jazz program. He was described by a Homestead classmate as kind of a brain and kind of a hippie, but he never fit into either group. He was smart enough to be a nerd, but wasn't nerdy. And he was too intellectual for the hippies, who just wanted to get wasted all the time. He was kind of an outsider. In high school, everything revolved around what group you were in, and if you weren't in a carefully defined group, you weren't anybody. Around that time, Wozniak designed a low-cost digital blue box to generate the necessary tones to manipulate the telephone network, allowing free long-distance calls. Jobs decided then to sell them and split the profit with Wozniak. The clandestine sales of the illegal blue boxes went well, and perhaps planted the seed in Jobs's mind that electronics could be both fun and profitable. Jobs, in a 1994 interview, recalled that it took 6 months for him and Wozniak to figure out how to build the blue boxes. Jobs later reflected that had it not been for Wozniak's blue boxes, there wouldn't have been an Apple. He states it showed them that they could take on large companies and beat them. In February 1974, Jobs returned to his parents' home in Los Altos and began looking for a job. He was soon hired by Atari Incorporated in Los Gatos, California, which gave him a job as a technician. Back in 1973, Steve Wozniak designed his own version of the classic video game Pong and gave the board to Jobs. According to Wozniak, Atari only hired Jobs because he took the board down to the company, and they thought that he had built it himself. Atari's co-founder Nolan Bushnell later described him as difficult, but valuable, pointing out that he was very often the smartest guy in the room, and he would let people know that. During this period, Jobs and Brennan remained involved with each other while continuing to see other people. By early 1974, Jobs was living what Brennan describes as a simple life in a Los Gatos cabin, working at Atari, and saving money for his impending trip to India. By March 1976, Wozniak completed the basic design of the Apple I computer and showed it to Jobs, who suggested that they sell it. Wozniak was at first skeptical of the idea, but later agreed. In April of that same year, Jobs, Wozniak, and administrative overseer Ronald Wayne founded Apple Computer Company, now called Apple Incorporated, as a business partnership in Jobs' parents' Chris drive home on April 1, 1976. The operation originally started in Jobs' bedroom and later moved to the garage. Wayne stayed only a short time, leaving Jobs and Wozniak as the active primary co-founders of the company. The two decided on the name Apple after Jobs returned from the All-One Farm commune in Oregon and told Wozniak about his time spent in the farm's apple orchard. Jobs originally planned to produce bare printed circuit boards of the Apple I and sell them to computer hobbyists for $50 each. To raise the money they needed to build the first batch of the circuit boards, Wozniak sold his HP Scientific calculator and Jobs sold his Volkswagen van. Later that year, computer retailer Paul Terrell purchased 50 fully assembled units of the Apple I from them for $500 each. Jobs was worth over $1 million in 1978, when he was just 23 years old. His net worth grew to over $250 million by the time he was 25, according to estimates. He was also one of the youngest people ever to make the Forbes list of the nation's richest people, and one of only a handful to have done it themselves, without inherited wealth. In 1983, Jobs lured John Sculley away from Pepsi-Cola to serve as Apple's CEO, asking, "Do you want to spend the rest of your life selling sugared water, or do you want a chance to change the world?" On January 22, 1984, Apple aired a Super Bowl television commercial titled 1984, which ended with the words, "On January 24th, Apple Computer will introduce Macintosh. And you'll see why 1984 won't be like 1984." Sculley's and Jobs' respective visions for the company greatly differed. The former favored open architecture computers like the Apple II, sold to education, small business, and home markets less vulnerable to IBM. Jobs wanted the company to focus on the closed architecture Macintosh as a business alternative to the IBM PC. President and CEO Sculley had little control over chairman of the board Jobs' Macintosh division. It and the Apple II division operated like separate companies, duplicating services. Although its products provided 85% of Apple's sales in early 1985, the company's January 1985 annual meeting did not mention the Apple II division or employees. Many left, including Wozniak, who stated that the company had been going in the wrong direction for the last 5 years and sold most of his stock. Despite being frustrated with the company's, including Jobs himself, dismissal of the Apple II employees in favor of the Macintosh, Wozniak left amicably and remained an honorary employee of Apple, maintaining a friendship with Jobs until his death. In 1985, Bill Gates' then developing company, Microsoft, threatened to stop developing Mac applications unless it was granted a license for the Mac operating system software. Microsoft was developing its graphical user interface, for DOS, which it was calling Windows, and didn't want Apple to sue over the similarities between the Windows GUI and the Mac interface. Scully granted Microsoft the license, which later led to problems for Apple. In addition, cheap IBM PC clones that ran on Microsoft software and had a graphical user interface began to appear. Although the Macintosh preceded the clones, it was far more expensive, so through the late 1980s, the Windows user interface was getting better, and was thus taking increasingly more share from Apple. Jobs touted it as the first interpersonal computer that would replace the personal computer. With its innovative NXT-Mail multimedia email system, NXTcube could share voice, image, graphics, and video in email for the first time. Interpersonal computing is going to revolutionize human communications and group work, Jobs told reporters. Jobs ran next with an obsession for aesthetic perfection, as evidenced by the development of and attention to NXTcube's magnesium case. This put considerable strain on Next's hardware division, and in 1993, after having sold only 50,000 machines, Next transitioned fully to software development with the release of Next Step/Intel. The company reported its first yearly profit of $1.03 million in 1994. In 1986, Jobs funded the spin-out of the graphics group, later renamed Pixar, from Lucasfilm's computer graphics division for the price of $10 million, $5 million of which was given to the company as capital, and $5 million of which was paid to Lucasfilm for technology rights. The first film produced by Pixar, with its Disney partnership, Toy Story, 1995, with Jobs credited as executive producer, brought financial success and critical acclaim to the studio when it was released. Over the course of Jobs' life, under Pixar's creative chief John Lasseter, the company produced box office hits A Bug's Life, Toy Story 2, Monsters Incorporated, Finding Nemo, The Incredibles, Cars, Ratatouille, Wall-E, Up, Toy Story 3, and Cars 2. Finding Nemo, The Incredibles, Ratatouille, Wall-E, Up and Toy Story 3 each received the Academy Award for Best Animated Feature, an award introduced in 2001. Brave, Pixar's first film to be produced since Jobs' death, honored him with a tribute for his contributions to the studio. In 2003 and 2004, as Pixar's contract with Disney was running out, Jobs and Disney chief executive Michael Eisner tried, but failed to negotiate a new partnership, and in January 2004, Jobs announced that he would never deal with Disney again. Pixar would seek a new partner to distribute its films after its contract expired. In October 2005, Bob Iger replaced Eisner at Disney, and Iger quickly worked to mend relations with Jobs and Pixar. On January 24, 2006, Jobs and Iger announced that Disney had agreed to purchase Pixar in an all-stock transaction worth $7.4 billion. With the purchase of Next, much of the company's technology found its way into Apple products, most notably Next Step, which evolved into Mac OS X. Under Jobs' guidance, the company increased sales significantly with the introduction of the iMac and other new products. Since then, appealing designs and powerful branding have worked well for Apple. The company subsequently branched out, introducing and improving upon other digital appliances. With the introduction of the iPod portable music player, iTunes digital music software, and the iTunes Store, the company made forays into consumer electronics and music distribution. On June 29, 2007, Apple entered the cellular phone business with the introduction of the iPhone, a multi-touch display cell phone, which also included the features of an iPod and, with its own mobile browser, revolutionized the mobile browsing scene. While nurturing open-ended innovation, Jobs also reminded his employees that real artists ship. In October 2003, Jobs was diagnosed with cancer. In mid-2004, he announced to his employees that he had a cancerous tumor in his pancreas. The prognosis for pancreatic cancer is usually very poor. Jobs stated that he had a rare, much less aggressive type, known as islet cell neuroendocrine tumor. Despite his diagnosis, Jobs resisted his doctor's recommendations for medical intervention for 9 months, instead relying on alternative medicine to thwart the disease. According to Harvard researcher Ramzi Omri, his choice of alternative treatment led to an unnecessarily early death. Other doctors agree that Jobs' diet was insufficient to address his disease. However, cancer researcher and alternative medicine critic David Gorski wrote that it's impossible to know whether and by how much he might have decreased his chances of surviving his cancer through his flirtation with Wu. My best guess was that Jobs probably only modestly decreased his chances of survival, if that. Barry R. Castleth, the chief of Memorial Sloan Kettering Cancer Center's Integrative Medicine Department, said Jobs's faith in alternative medicine likely cost him his life. He had the only kind of pancreatic cancer that is treatable and curable. He essentially committed suicide. According to Jobs's biographer, Walter Isaacson, for 9 months he refused to undergo surgery for his pancreatic cancer, a decision he later regretted as his health declined. Instead, he tried a vegan diet, acupuncture, herbal remedies, and other treatments he found online, and even consulted a psychic. He was also influenced by a doctor who ran a clinic that advised juice fasts, bowel cleansings, and other unproven approaches, before finally having surgery in July 2004. He eventually underwent a pancreaticoduodenectomy, or Whipple procedure, in July 2004 that appeared to remove the tumor successfully. Jobs did not receive chemotherapy or radiation therapy. During Jobs' absence, Tim Cook, head of worldwide sales and operations at Apple, ran the company.